So for a while now, there's been discussion in the game about what's really OP. Are AD carries underpowered and need to be buffed? Are they really OP and AD carries are just bitches and complain too much? Are tanks really OP, or are they in a right spot and just difficult to deal with? Well, in my opinion, the real culprits here are junglers, but that's a discussion for later. For now, we're going to talk about the real issue with tanks that for some reason nobody seems to be talking about. I'm going to give you a list of all the current meta tanks and see if you find a common trait amongst all these champions. You got Maokai, Echo, Fizz, Trundle, Gragas, Poppy, and throw in Nara in there too while you're at it. What do all these champions have in common? Well, if you only thought about the champions, you probably wouldn't have guessed that all these champions have percentage maximum HP or missing HP damage. Think about what that means. That means that these guys are always going to be able to deal a lot of damage based on their target, not on themselves. So no matter what they build, what they do, their damage is always going to be there because they're going to be hitting somebody. Think about a champion like Vayne, an AD carry. She has percentage maximum HP damage in her silver bolts, but it's in the form of true damage, and Vayne deals a lot of damage. Put that in a physical form and give it to a tank. Now you see why these guys deal so much damage. Couple that really high base damage, really high base values that also have that percent damage. It allows all these guys to build full tank and still dish out significant amounts of DPS. Because a lot of the items that they can build also synergize incredibly well with pretty much every tank. Sunfire Cape, armor, HP, and more damage. Frozen Fist, cooldown reduction, slow, and more damage. Spirit Visage, magic resist, cooldown reduction, and more healing. Pretty much every tank item, Randuin's armor, HP, and what tank doesn't scale off HP nowadays, are just synergizing so well with the itemization and their base values that they stay completely relevant as damage threats throughout the entire game. The next point that I think is pretty obvious, all these champions are brain dead easy. All these tanks have no skill at all. These champions require so little thought process in their actions that pretty much anybody can play them. I saw a video earlier that I'm going to link about a guy complaining how Call of Duty has compressed the skill gap and appealed to the masses. And they compressed the skill gap by adding elements that let you get kills with little skill, so that you feel like you're doing something, like you're actually talented. You got things like martyrdom, which if you don't know what that means, is when you die, you drop a live grenade, and basically lets you trade 1-for-1 almost every single time. It's like, oh, you got killed? Don't worry, you got a kill in return. And then you look at your score at the end of the game, and you realize, how many kills did I really get for martyrdom? I don't remember. I guess I'm pretty good. You got noob tubes. You got nukes nowadays. I mean, come on, nukes? That's kind of the same thing that's happened with these tanks. They're so easy that you're almost guaranteed not to get a kill, but to dish out a very significant amount of damage that is incredibly oppressive. Somebody like Maokai, I mean, really, how many times do you see a Maokai really miss abilities? Does his skill shots matter? I mean, his ultimate has a 20% damage reduction for his team, and just the sheer amount of gold value that can provide in a team fight is ludicrous. So Maokai takes no skill, and honestly, when's the last time you heard somebody say something like, dude, did you see Smebs? Smebs Maokai? Holy shit, it's above and beyond any other Maokai I've ever seen. I can't believe his Maokai can be that good. I didn't know somebody could get that good at Maokai. Instead, you got a champion like Fiora, who still maintains that percent HP, but you can tell a clear difference between her skill in a very talented player and a not so talented player. That's why all these incredibly skilled, mechanically gifted top lane players always drift towards playing the mechanically intensive top laners. You know, that's why they want to play Riven. That's why they want to play like Aurelia's or whatever other top lane tanks, or not tanks, top lane skill matchups are, like the Fioras. Did I say Fiora? I meant Quinn. Jax. All these champions are naturally attractive towards these players because they take skill, unlike tanks, who, while they can deal damage, don't take skill. These guys are so easy. If it's not even an illustration of how little skill these guys require, think about Maokai and Lifesteal. Lifesteal was nerfed, or changed, diminished if you will. So AD carries usually lifesteal in the late game, maybe 200 HP in auto. Yet you have Maokai, when he has a Spirit Visage, auto-attacking and healing himself for about 500 HP every auto. Now, does that make sense? Because that is a lot of life, and intrinsically it's a lot of gold value that is literally there for free in his kit. So it makes you feel like, dude, I got out of position, but I'm a god because I just auto-attacked, and wow, I'm back to full HP every single auto-attack. It's really hard to kill me. Another thing that makes these champions so easy is that they all have such little skill shots and gap closers that it's really hard to get away from them. I mean, Echo blinks at you, for crying out loud. He literally flies at you. Maokai's point and click. Poppy's point and click. Trundle, he's a little bit different, but he still is basically just running straight into your face. There's no thought process into that. Fizz just jumps straight into you and has an escape to get out if necessary, amongst many others. So these champions becoming so easy makes the counterplay a lot harder. That's why when Xin Zhao was really OP, he was just, nobody could deal with him because his simplicity made the counterplay very difficult. Is not a skill shot. You literally get jumped on an auto attack, then what are you going to do? Then, for example, take a champion like Fiora, who, while very skill intensive and very OP back then, she still required a certain level of skill that opens up possibilities for counterplay for the enemy. You can hug a wall and try to stop her from getting your vital. You can dash in a certain direction. You can try to outplay the riposte with some of your abilities. All sorts of counterplay. But these tanks, because of how easy they are, what's missing is the second half of the story saying that the counterplay is very difficult because of how easy these guys are. A good example of a champion or tank that I think is, a nice design is somebody like a Hecarim. You know exactly what you're getting out of the Hecarim. You build that first item, Trinity Force, and he deals a lot of damage. But is he going to be squishy? Yeah. And do his abilities have the potential of ruining a game for your own team? They most certainly do. The E can be game-winning or game-losing. Same with his ultimate. A well-timed W in Hecarim can single-handedly win the fight. But it takes skill to use these abilities. It takes a certain state of mind to know exactly when to use these and not just mindlessly throw yourself into the mix and come out ahead winning. Same with a champion like Gnar. You got to time rage. I think Gnar is a fantastic tank. Holy shit, this design is awesome. You have to have practice with your timing. You need to understand both a range and physical aspect. You can build AD, you can build tank. It makes so much sense. It's so much fun to watch Gnar be played because he fits such a good role as a tank because he actually requires skill. You can tell so much of a skill gap between a good Gnar and a bad Gnar that, a good Gnar is a better tank than Maokai, and a bad Gnar is worse than having a Soraka top. It's so cool to see a design like this, but then you come out with these champions that are so easy that just, bore the game down a little bit. So the other day somebody asked me, hey, Crumbz, if you had 5 players and you had them ranging from bronze, silver, gold, plat, and diamond, what would you place them in each role? Well, my first answer was obviously put the bronze guy top. Put him on something that's easy, that's not going to let the team down, and it'll be straightforward. Either give him Maokai or Malphite, and he'll be good to go. He doesn't have to do anything. Just don't die and just sit there and watch the game. For those of you that were wondering what other roles I put, I believe I put jungle was diamond, platinum mid, gold support, silver AD, and top lane bronze. Anyways, enough ranting about how these tanks are so easy. Now, let's offer some sort of solutions. I've already given examples of champions and champion design that should be okay for future tanks, but how about, you can tone down the base values, but you can also make these guys just have skill shots. Honestly, if you just offer a champion a bigger depth of skill, the counterplay becomes larger and the reward becomes better. When I go and play a tank, I don't feel very rewarded and be like, yeah, you know what, I did a really good job tanking today. Man, you know, I was in the right place. I soaked up the right amount of damage. Instead, you just have a guy that throws himself out there and looks at the damage dealt to at the end of the game and says, yeah, you know what, I soaked up 100k damage. You're like, did you really feel like that did something? What about abilities that are like, the more you absorb near your allies, the stronger you get, kind of thing, and then you can counterplay with damage, things like that, or just skill shots that actually matter, like the change from the Rengar bola into the skill shot bola. Like, all these things help make the game healthier, because you don't want it to be easy, that you just have to press two abilities and you're good to go. I mean, honestly, you could play Mako with two abilities, W and R, and still win pretty much every team fight. Another example is somebody like Gragas, who I think is an awesome tank too, because he also has 3 skill shots. He has many CCs which are game winning or even game breaking. But the guy has to be good. You got to be a good Gragas and understand what you're doing, understand the champion and the depth of him, so that you can execute this and have an amazing play, a game winning play. That's awesome. That's what I love to see, and that's what I miss about these tanks. That's what I miss seeing. I miss seeing a tank that just, you know, goes out of the way and you're like, damn, that was impressive. That was an impressive initiation that I haven't seen in a while. Instead, you just get flash TPs, you know, flash one ability, fights one. That's boring. So I invite to see more of these skill champions come back. And if you like to play these champions and find yourself in the challenge, why don't you try playing one of these tanks that have skill to them, or play them in a way that has a little bit more depth to the champion. I mean, for crying out loud, Echo's passive is his main damage, and you just auto the guy 3 times. You don't even need to hit your abilities. His parallel conversions barely even counts. Enough ranting. Well, hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for watching.